This is the Fertile Mindset podcast, where we explore all the emotional aspects of fertility to support you on your path to parenthood. My name is Sarah Holland. I'm the Fertile Mindset coach and a mother to 2 children after my own fertility challenges. I hope you find all the support and inspiration you need within this podcast to carry you forward on your fertility journey towards your own successful outcome. It's also my wish that through listening to these episodes, you rediscover how to enjoy life now and live it to the full while you wait for your baby. Now, let's begin today's episode. You're joining us for episode 2 of the Fertile Mindset podcast. Thank you for coming back and continuing to listen. It really means so much to get this support and inspiration out to as many people as possible. So please do subscribe or follow wherever you listen to your podcasts, leave a review and share these episodes too, because while we're in a podcast launch week, by doing these things, you can enter a giveaway. I'll be giving more details at the end, and you'll also find them at fertilemindset.com/podcast. Now, in this episode, we're going to talk about the power of fertility self-talk and listen to that secret voice inside your mind to see if it can be heard, understood, and then recruited to support you and your fertility, because there is such huge power in that inner voice. We all have an inner voice and an abundance of thoughts for that voice to talk about. According to the National Science Foundation, an average person has around 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts per day, and of those, around 80% are negative thoughts and 95% are repetitive thoughts. With each thought comes a comment, observation, or opinion, so it gets really noisy up there in our minds. Our thoughts are the beginning of a chain reaction that has the power to control our whole life, including the direction of our fertility journey. The chain reaction goes like this. A thought triggers a feeling, which leads to us taking an action, and then we have the result of that action. And it all starts with the thought and the meaning and feeling that we attach to it. A thought that is positive or negative, empowering or disempowering, can lead to actions of the same kind, positively or negatively impacting on what then happens in our lives. The quote, "Thoughts become things," has been said many times by many people, and it's such an easy phrase to remember and a short reminder to bring to mind whenever you notice a thought that feels uncomfortable or disempowering. Remind yourself that thoughts become things, and this may be enough to make a switch to a more aligned and positive thought. Now let's look at an example of a negative thought and its impact if it's with us constantly. The thought could be, "I don't believe I will get pregnant," and the feelings triggered by the thought could be despondency and hopelessness. And this could lead to inaction around getting pregnant. What it wouldn't lead to is creative or motivated action. It would feel like your mind isn't on board with your plan to have a baby, and you might not feel motivated or energized to take actions which could bring the possibility of pregnancy closer. On the other hand, if you have a belief that you will have a baby, then you will be open to and actively looking for ways to make this happen. My own go-to mantra when I was trying to conceive was, "Someday, somehow, I will be a mother." It used to just drop into my mind whenever I needed it most. Whether that was when I got my period or when a friend announced a pregnancy, these words would just come to mind. And it kept me open to that dream for my future and all the possible solutions and routes to get there. Now, there is such power in our self-talk. No one has more influence over your thoughts, feelings, and actions than you. You may feel like it's the doctor who said something discouraging or the judgmental comment from a friend or relative that made you lose hope on your fertility journey, but it's the thought that you had when they said that has the real impact. Think back to a time now when someone said something negative and it affected you. I'll give you an example that I often hear from people I support at Fertile Mindset, and you can see if it reminds you of things that have been said to you and the thoughts and feelings that were triggered. Now, imagine you're in a doctor's office waiting for fertility test results, and the opinion given from the doctor is, "I believe you have a 1% chance of falling pregnant naturally." What is the thought that follows this? Typically, I hear it something like, "Well, I'll never be a mum now," which leads to a feeling of despondency and of giving up hope. And the action that can lead to could be, in fact, inaction, a feeling of giving up. Or the thought might be, my body has failed me. And this can trigger feelings of blame, frustration, and anger towards your body. If you feel like your body's not been supporting your dream of having a baby, it can almost feel like a battle between you, who really wants to have a baby, and your body, who is apparently failing you. Maybe this leads to you then not taking care of your body in the same way you did, perhaps going back to drinking more caffeine or alcohol when you previously reduced or gave it up to help you get pregnant. I shouldn't have waited so long is another thought that I hear from women in this situation. I hear this one so often that it truly breaks my heart because, again, it leads to blame and shame directed towards yourself and around past decisions or indecision, and a feeling of regret too. Now, this present time is all we have, and whatever decisions we made in the past were the right ones and the best ones we could make at the time. If you weren't in the right relationship at the time to have a baby, or life just didn't feel stable or lived enough yet to bring children into the picture, then you made the decision you needed to at the time. Staying in a place of blame or shame around the past can make it really hard to focus on the present moment and to see what options you now have. So you may then not take action to bring you into the present or move into the future if your mind is constantly going back to the past. Now, this was just one example of a doctor stating that there's a low chance of conceiving naturally, and all the different thoughts that can lead from that and the action or inaction that results. Can you see that the way we process something that happens to us and the thoughts and self-talk that we then have can have a huge impact on the next steps and the potential future outcome of our fertility journey? We're surrounded by other people and their opinions all the time, doctors and fertility professionals, our family, friends, even random strangers whose opinions we may read online. And each time we listen to or read something that others say, we immediately have a thought in response to it. And from that thought, we take an action. Can you see the power of that chain reaction? And that this is all taking place in your mind, and the things that you say to yourself, the meaning you give them, and the direction you take yourself to. So what can we do to harness the power of our self-talk for good? Start by listening carefully to your self-talk, your inner voice. What is it saying day to day about you and your fertility? And what does it say in reaction to things that happen? Is it supportive and encouraging, or does it seem demotivating and discouraging? Does it speak to you like a friend? Imagine if you did have a friend that said all the same things to you that you say in the privacy of your mind. Imagine it's the day of a negative pregnancy test result or your period arriving, and you share this with a friend looking for support, but instead they come back with things like, well, you should just give up trying for a baby, or you're obviously doing something wrong, it's all your fault, or you shouldn't have waited so long, you'll never get pregnant at your age. Now, if these things were being said to you by a friend that you could rely on and that you trusted and you went to for support, what would then happen to your friendship? I'm guessing it would turn sour straight away, and that friend would no longer be on your list of people to go to when you're in need of love and support. So let's check in with ourselves for a moment. If our own inner voice is not only the one that we hear the most, but the one that also has the greatest impact on our emotional well-being and motivation, shouldn't that inner voice be the most supportive, encouraging, loving voice possible? Imagine having a friend by your side at all times who always knew the right thing to say, who could help you dig deep and find your strength and believed in your dreams even when you were having trouble believing them yourself. Imagine how amazing that would be. Well, that is possible, as you have you and your thoughts with you at all times, so you can be your own best friend, your biggest cheerleader, and your greatest, most loving supporter. And you know what? If you lavish this support and love on yourself, you'll notice that others start doing it too. So how do we change this self-talk? Listening to the self-talk and understanding whether it's supportive or not is only one part of this work. The next is what to do to turn this around. It's often not as simple as just changing what you say to yourself, because while this may work in the short term with a big dose of willpower to keep the positive self-talk going, in the long run, you're likely to fall back into whatever your default self-talk pattern is. And for most of us, that isn't all day, every day positive. So what can we do to change the self-talk that you have around your fertility and keep it more positive and supportive? You can choose a more empowering thought and help this to stick. In fact, what we want to do is discover what your most natural, healthy, supportive thoughts would be. And if we can connect with these thoughts, then they can stick without effort and become our new normal way of talking to ourselves as the most comfortable and natural way to respond to whatever challenges we face. What's important to do is to remove the attachment we have to a negative thought or belief that keeps us stuck in a negative cycle with our self-talk. The technique I use to do this at Fertile Mindset is called EFT, Emotional Freedom Techniques, or it's sometimes just called tapping. It's a surprisingly simple and very effective technique that people often say feels like magic. And I have a free class that will teach you and guide you through using EFT within my free membership level of the Fertile Mindset Sanctuary. The class is called Fertile Mindset Mastery, and it will introduce you to this effective approach to mindset work in just an hour. I suggest setting aside the time just for you, getting yourself a hot drink, a notepad, and watching the class. Once you've watched, you'll then have ongoing access to it and other fertility EFT resources within the Fertile Mindset Sanctuary. Register for the free level, which includes the class, at fertilemindset.com/sanctuary. And once you've learnt this technique, you'll have EFT under your belt and you can turn around your self-talk with these simple steps. And you might want to note these down. First, recognise when negative self-talk and thoughts are being triggered. Next, listen to that thought, hear what it's saying, and notice any emotion attached to it. Lastly, write all this down and create an EFT tapping round focused on that thought and the emotion, starting with an EFT setup phrase. You then create the reminder phrases for your EFT round using the words in the initial setup phrase. Full details of how to do this are in the class in the sanctuary. Now, for example, this may look like a setup phrase of, even though seeing a negative pregnancy test today made me feel sad and hopeless, and I feel like giving up trying for a baby, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. In that phrase, you're acknowledging the trigger event, which is the negative test, and the thoughts and feelings that come up. As you then tap on the thoughts and feelings, you'll be able to release what you don't need or what may even not be true, and discover what your most natural supportive thought and mindset would be. Go check out the class and get everything you need to get started with this. Honestly, it really does work like magic. And let me know how it goes. You can contact me anytime at support@fertilemindset.com. So let's recap the key points from this episode. We all have an abundance of thoughts with around 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts per day. Around 80% of those are negative thoughts and 95% are repetitive thoughts, so there is a huge space for improvement there. Our thoughts are the beginning of a chain reaction. A thought triggers a feeling, which leads to us taking an action, and then we have the result of that action, which shows the power of our thoughts in changing the direction of our fertility journey and our lives. Remember the short phrase, thoughts become things. We can harness the power of our self-talk for good by listening carefully to our inner voice. Notice what it's talking to you about your fertility and you, and if it's supportive and encouraging. Does it speak to you like a friend? And if we notice we're not speaking to ourselves like a friend, we can change the self-talk by removing the attachment we have to a negative thought or belief that keeps us stuck in a negative cycle with our self-talk. And the technique I use to do this at Fertile Mindset is called EFT, which you can learn with my free class at fertilemindset.com/sanctuary. Now, before we end this episode, I want to tell you all about the big launch week that we're currently in, which has an amazing giveaway to celebrate the start of the Fertile Mindset podcast. There are 3 easy ways that you can enter this giveaway. Firstly, by subscribing or following this podcast wherever you listen to it. And what this will also mean for you is that you are notified when new episodes go live. Also, by writing a review on Apple Podcasts. And lastly, by sharing about the podcast anywhere on social media. You can find posts to share on Facebook at Fertile Mindset and Instagram at fertile_mindset. To enter the draw, simply send a screenshot of each subscription, review or share to support@fertilemindset.com. And for each one, you're going to be entered into a draw to win a one-to-one package of Fertile Mindset support Zoom sessions with me. And this is worth £360. Check out all the details of this prize draw and the closing date at fertilemindset.com/podcast. Thank you so much for joining the Fertile Mindset podcast in its launch week. It's such a pleasure to have you join us, and I hope you're finding support and inspiration from these episodes. In the next episode, we're going to have our first guest at the Fertile Mindset podcast, and I'm really looking forward to sharing that with you too. Take care and speak to you again soon. I'm so pleased you're listening to the Fertile Mindset podcast, and now I would love to invite you to join us in the Fertile Mindset Sanctuary. The Sanctuary is my fertility support membership, which is focused on taking care of you and helping you enjoy your life while you wait for your baby. In the Sanctuary, I'll guide you through using an amazing technique called EFT or tapping, and you'll soon be feeling less stressed and more joyful. If you're not already in the Sanctuary, do come and join us today, because the best time to start receiving support on your fertility journey is always right now. Honestly, it makes such a difference to have good quality emotional support and techniques that you can pick up and use yourself whenever you need them. Go to fertilemindset.com/sanctuary to join us today. I look forward to hopefully seeing you there and at the next episode of the Fertile Mindset podcast.